Now, let me just say this off the rip. People, this commentary is not going to go over well for a lot of you. But this is my truth, and this truth is ugly. As oftentimes the truth can be, but it is what it is. Now, when I was growing up in the South, my parents didn't play the radio. My dad and mom would tell you once, maybe twice, to do something. And if you chose not to comply, you knew you were heading towards getting a good old-fashioned butt whipping. Sometimes it was a switch, sometimes it was a belt, sometimes there were welts, sometimes not. But always there was a painful reminder that there were consequences and repercussions to our actions. And we needed to understand that that house was not a democracy. It was a dictatorship. And Fidel, mommy, and daddy ran the show. I'm sure by today's standards, my parents would be accused of using excessive force in their corporal punishment of us. There was no such thing as time out. Yet and still, they managed to raise 5 children to be respectful, productive members of society that know how to respect their elders, and they never once had to deal with the justice system or being called to school by the principal because we were being disruptive in class. None of that. All that being said, I'm kind of conflicted with how I feel about the firing of the school resource officer, Ben Fields, behind the incident involving a 16-year-old teenage girl in South Carolina. Now, I'm the first one to point out what I believe is racism and discrimination wherever it rears its ugly head. And I believe in calling wrong, wrong, whatever the case may be. However, I'm trying to figure out, in spite of the forceful takedown of this young woman, what alternative measures should the resource officer or could the officer have taken to bring the outcome to a different conclusion? I don't know if anyone else heard what I heard from the audio portion of the tape recording, but I heard the cop say to the young woman that he was fair with her in the past, indicating to me that this wasn't her first time at the rodeo. My initial impression of the situation, and I have to be honest, is that this 16-year-old girl was what we would have called a badass. And no matter who would have showed up to handle that situation, including Jesus himself, it was going to go badly, because she wasn't about to acquiesce to any authoritative figure. And unfortunately, to a side point, what bothers me is that it's this type of bad behavior the haters of like the Black Lives Matter movement will point to in their warped rationalization and justification or outright dismissal of real and egregious injustices to our people based purely on skin color, but I digress. Now the question becomes to me, could this cop, who they're claiming to have been dating a black woman for some time now, been motivated by something other than getting her behind out of that classroom? I don't know. Does this officer have a history of excessive force that makes his actions typical of how he handles these type of problems in the past? I guess we'll have to see. Now, my brother was a security officer in a high school, and he told me that he had to deal physically with boys and girls just like this teen too. And he said, quote, "I ain't mad at him." The real ugly truth of the matter is that in today's society, you have young people, young adults, children, 18, 16, 13, that are bad, violent at times, real disciplinary problems. And there's a possibility that Mr. Fields may have known something about this teen that we don't. Maybe the teacher is catching a lot of flack for not doing anything and didn't intervene for a reason. Maybe he knows something we don't. What I know for sure is that we as parents of children that go to school to learn and get an education shouldn't want our children to learn the lesson that says that you as a student don't have to respect your fellow classmates, the teacher, the principal, or the school police officer if you don't want to or don't feel like it. Do you? And we'll just wait until you're ready to join the rest of the class. Please. Our teachers have enough to deal without having to raise somebody else's child so that they can do the job they are barely being paid to do. I know you couldn't pay me to do that job. Maybe the problem is we need more people like the infamous principal portrayed in the movie Lean On Me, Joe Clark, that demanded excellence from his students and didn't put up with a whole lot of foolishness. Because trust and believe, people, if that young woman thinks what Ben Fields did to her was bad, wait till she gets a taste of the real world that doesn't give a damn about your upbringing, foster home situation, your psychological issues. Without an education and a bad attitude, she's going to find out real quick like that compared to the hard knocks that life is going to throw her way, that ass whipping is going to feel like a timeout. I'm just saying.